Start recording. Right. So this is Joe Sanders, When the Piping Stopped, which is I suppose, a version of the Pied Piper of Hamelin, the results. We were far from home and stared into each other's faces, aghast with sadness, not for the missed bedtime story or the loved feeling of a good-night kiss. It was that when the piping stopped, we felt an infinite sense of loss. What had made us leave everything so suddenly? I was upstairs playing with my toys, my parents in the backyard. The sun was low, suspended between day and night, a strange stillness since the rats had gone. I wasn't aware at first of any music, just a feeling inside me, a tingle of everything within, shifting. My body entered and altered. I ran out into the street and joined all the children from the village to follow a strange man in rainbow ribbons and a perky hat with a pipe at his lips. I heard his honeyed sounds and could hardly stand for the joy inside me, but my limbs became light and we danced behind him in the dusk, along the road and out of the village, across the fields damp with dew, along the dark river. The sweetness and purity pierced me almost unbearably, catching me in its whirlpool until it reached a climax and we felt the release. I never heard his pipe again, or ever felt such blissfulness, though I have searched all my life to recapture how I felt before the piping stopped. That's Joe Sanders.
She is good, isn't she?
She is.
We like that one, don't we? Yeah, it's a very good poem. Good evening, Jim.
Hi, good evening.
Are you good to go?
Yes. Right. I'll just read a short poem, actually. It's called Self-Portrait of an Unknown Poet. He has the wild-eyed countenance of the prophet, the pent-up energy of the demented, the shattered synapses of a socially dysfunctional, and he is prone to storm-tossed utterings, Lear-like farragos of sense and nonsense, not to mention arcane fantasies of redeeming the world and himself by the sheer intensity of his own messianic suffering, over which he has imperfect control. To make matters worse, he constantly attends gatherings of the equally afflicted, seeing all other poets, male and female alike, as pale reflections of his innermost and universal self.
That's lovely, Jim. You must stop talking about Ted like that, though. No, sorry, it's a lovely poem. Thank you. Another one?
No, I'll leave it for the time being.
Will you? I like that. It's a very nice poem. Thank you. Okay, Sue. Good evening, Sue.
Good evening. Hi. I'm going to read something I've just written fairly recently, and it's for my sister, who she's one of the poor people who has got a kidney transplant, so is very vulnerable. And in fact, she's had 3 transplants, she's on a third, and she's terrified that with the masks coming off and so on, that she's going to be even more vulnerable. So this is for her. It's called Between Things. I turn stones over on the beach, soundtracked by the out-of-season scrape and hiss of crashing silver salt, the knife-edge keening of the gulls. I'm trying to find the perfect one, C-shaped into something like a heart, and small enough to fit my hand, to hide inside the pocket of my coat. It's afternoon. The sun is low down in the sky, and there is no one on the shore. I'm here, but also where you are, that narrow bed, the tangled tubing, monitors, alarms. The sea is climbing up the beach. My feet are cold and wet. All I can do is think of you, and this is all that I can give. This small stone, body warmed, closed carefully into your palm. And that was, I actually took a stone to her when she had her operation from a beach that we both knew, and put it in her hand. So that's what that's about. And this is a bit of a different venture for me. It's a prose poem. So it's a little bit long, so I hope you'll bear with it. And it doesn't read so easily as a proper poem. But anyway, it's called Astrius, which is the god of dusk. Okay. Dusk. The sun spreads out its honey on the far hill, soaks like sherry into sponge cake, disappears. Daytime certainties begin to blur. Soft shadows shuffle closer, start their adorations. Birds fall silent, and the trees stand quiet as horses in a circle, night almost upon them. He owns this time now, breathes its subtle fade, its liminal embodied weight. He feels it like a broken arrow which he can't draw out, his burden and his birthright. His thoughts are owl wings, silently aligned and spread, one ear listening to the ground, quartering the dry, late summer field, picking up the tiny murmurs, possibilities, rustles boxed within the long bleached grass. The other concentrating on the hymn of sky, thin sounds from above. He is quivering, feathered with intent. The dark slips softly round his head. Across his body, he enters it like water, lets it flow across him. The doors are open to the evening. Soon he'll slip outside, welcome the air, the hot flame of the day now dissipated, cooling. Bats hunt here above the stream, tiny triangles of ragged silk which susurrate between the trees and out across the water. But they respect him, they won't bother him. He's waiting on the stars, his stars, yearns for their light, their Stygian silver. He is quiet, quiet and wise. Now in his solemn, serious face, there is the haunt of longing, obscure velvet in the blood. His hair has that spangled, lustrous evening sheen. He cloaks himself, for it is time. Watchful of him at first, and then more proudly, his beloved winds begin to blow. Okay, because he was the god of, father of winds. Yeah, thank you.
So stick with your prose. It's absolutely beautiful.
You like
that is pure poetry. Everyone loved it. It's
yeah,
it's magic. It's a lovely poem. Thank you. They're both good, but that second one, wow, just knocked my socks off. Yes, really beautiful. Thank you. Wow, love that one. Well, welcome Lorraine and welcome Jack, who've now joined us. Good evening. Hi. I'm just that's the kind of wave from me. So we're going to go to Martin now. Good evening, Martin. Again.
Good evening, George, and everybody else. Just chosen at random from my book. I've got two poems, a pair of sonnets about the sea. So this is from my one and only published book some years ago. So the first one is Surf. Before they cast their drops ashore, and tumble foaming from colossal height, great waves, standing on tiptoe, flecked with hoar, command their subject beaches, shun the slight canoes who wish their awesome powers to stay. They rumble dark defiance in the roar of churning waters, ponderous and grey, and stirring shell and pebble, they withdraw before they marshal all their strength again, and turning mount another bold assault. But regal as they seem, another reign still trumps them, which will never brook revolt. So in this tireless cycle are content to match the ever-turning firmament. And this one is Low Tide. Woven water ambles up the beach, as leisurely it licks at ravelled sand, glides to film, a broad and glistening band, dazzling eyes to the long bay's furthest reach. These are delicate children of those bold rollers pounding at buttressed sea walls, hushed beneath far-distant plaintive calls of gulls, timid wavelets, barely rolled to ripple rock pools clear and glassy calm. The wine-dark wave, but these are wine-dark pale, If Venus rose here, see that ancient tale, these thin layers wouldn't cover her arm should it fall here. This gently pleated sea may also smooth the heart's anxiety.
Two lovely sonnets, Martin. Do you want to do another one? We've got plenty of time, or you want to
I'll
do
do one more. This one you've probably heard before. This
Okay.
is the first Bramleys. From few seeds, provenance unknown, sprang this venerable trunk, reborn after the first toppled, still with generous fruit, Hesperian plump. From cutting and graft, globally yields your annual tonnage, hefty globes too wide to hide in a hand. One resists 2 days of doctors, baked as crumble, strudel, pie or stewed. The firm white flesh can still delight almost 2 centuries after rooting Southwell soil, bud, blossom, fruit, a yearly cycle constant as the apple ripening suns. That was based on a Times article, 6th of Feb 95. Okay, I'll read some more in the second half. Thank you.
Very, very nice, Martin. Thank you very much. Lovely poems. Thank you. Appreciate them. I'm going to one of my Wellington Library dear friends. It's Alan. Evening, Alan. Are you a bit muted? That's
Evening.
it.
Here we are.
Evening.
Sorry about that. I did a love poetry workshop a couple of years ago now, and this is something that I put together for it. It's called Those Three Words. It's not all about the passion or the fireworks in the bedroom. It's about being the best you can, not just you and me, but us and we, together or separately. When love came, there was no big bang, just a balance of their yin and yang, knowing they got each other's back, and that kept their lives on track. They fitted together like tongue and groove, and rarely ever spoke of love. It wasn't ever necessary. Their first steps were taken tentatively. Then they marched through the years, full of laughter, a few tears. Life would throw in the odd surprise. They'd think, oh well, and roll their eyes, and we'll cope and then move on. This consolidated their strong bond. It's the movies that are full of romance, the beautiful girl held close as they dance, and then that he'd live out his perfect life of glitz and glamour with his Stepford wife. But real life isn't like that. Real love isn't like that. It's as it comes, straight off the bat. So as they lay in their bed, those three words are rarely said. They don't need to hear it. It's stronger in their hearts than in their words. Thank you.
Sums it up well, Alan. You got another one for us?
Thank you. Yes, this was, I can't remember what this type of poem is called, but it's read it down and then read it back up again. Palindrome, is it? I think. Something like that. Anyway, it's called Salvation, and I've just seen a few things about refugees on the television which reminded me of this. So again, Salvation. Come on, they shouted. We'll help you. The call's from the beach. Little boats arrive. Having paid their life savings, they tiredly paddled in the calm of dawn. They scrambled to keep warm, sick and dehydrated. Slow progress made, wanting a safer life. Everyone desperate. Parents protecting their children. Limbs weak, tender and sore. They had left the safety of land, their bodies unable to take any more, escaping an uncertain future. Escaping an uncertain future, their bodies unable to take any more, they had left the safety of land. Limbs weak, tender and sore. Parents protected their children. Everyone desperate, wanting a safer life. Slow progress made, sick and dehydrated, they scrambled to keep warm. In the calm of dawn, they tiredly paddled, having paid their life savings. Little boats arrived, the calls from the beach. We'll help you, they shouted. Come on. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great, Alan. Thank you. That first poem was very true about what most true, decent, loving marriages are about. And the second poem, I'm not very clever, but I call it a mirror poem, and it's lovely.
Okay, yeah.
And it's very pertinent with what's going on, isn't it, with the refugees trying to get across. Yeah. Thank you, Alan. That's great. Lovely.
Okay.
Spot on. We're going to go to Norman now. Hi, Norman.
Hello, George. Hello, everyone. I've got a few, George. A couple of weeks ago, Anne read a little gem about poems that rhyme with rhythm. And I was conscious that for about last year, most of what I've read didn't have sort of the traditional rhyme and rhythm. And I've had a couple of lines in my head for a few months now, but Anne actually prompted me to actually complete this one with rhyme and rhythm. I hope I passed the audition. It is called The Promised Land, and it's just very small tribute to my father. In the summer of '66, they closed the old railway down. My father went out searching for a new job in town. He ended up on the promised land, sowing seed and cutting hay, toiling in the sweating sun for very little pay. I was 12 when I first drove the tractor on the fields to help my father grow the crops and produce a decent yield. As the years passed by, work just got tougher, and the drink and the dust led him to suffer. Eager at 18, I left home as planned. So father decided to leave the unforgiving land. Still, looking back, we worked, strived, and bonded. Hard times and happy times. No time was squandered. Thank you. Right, the next one, last month I attended a prose workshop, and I wasn't prepared for this, but sort of halfway through the first half, our tutor said, right, I'm giving you 15, 20 minutes max, and I want you to write some prose about an orange. So it's not my style, but this is what I came up with. At least 95%. I have tweaked it since. So it's called naranja, which is Spanish for orange, an orange. Sitting on the shelf in the fruit bowl, beckoning for attention like an orange planet in the heavens. A source of vitamin C, bitter, sweet, and refreshing. This is what I see, an orange. It evokes future summer days when the cricket teams and splendid whites are in the park, where bat hits ball, but not an orange ball. Family picnics on the perimeter of the village green, toddlers in the sun wearing oversized sun hats. In their picnic basket lies an orange, which father peels with flushing juice, presenting segments with juicy fingers to his young, like chicks in a nest. This fruit came from the orange groves in Spain, basking in the beating sun under blue, cloudless skies. One day, I may visit and let the juices flow through my fingers. Thank you. Now it's time for what's the phrase? Heart on your sleeve. This is my heart on my sleeve. This is about a relationship, past relationship that didn't quite work out. It's called You Appeared to Have It All. You stood out across the party floor in a hot pink dress, sensually shaped and cut just above the knee. You appeared to have it all, enough to make a guard dog break its chain. Blonde hair, blue eyes, dancing with your shoes off to the rhythm of the night. You appeared to have it all, enough to make a young man melt in the moonlight. We were glowing in the queue, not caring about the fall of the large snowflakes when we shared a taxi and I saw you safely home. You appeared to have it all, enough to agree a pinky promise that we meet again soon. I was no Romeo and you no Juliet. We were destined at times to share a volatile relationship. You cooked our first dinner together, the springboard to a hedonistic spell that took us on travels throughout the UK, south of France and Amsterdam. And in the mix, rock concerts, theatre, ballet and opera. Your mum, a single parent teacher, made ends meet. She wanted the best for you. For that, I could not fault her. We appear to have it all. But your mum arranged a marriage to another. You see, there would have been 3 in the marriage. And despite our alignment like stars in the heavens, I decided to exit and travel on through space and time. It was not to be. Some would call it lost love. Thank you.
Well, Norman, your venture into verse was very worthwhile. But that last one, oh, loved it. I love a lot of your poetry, but I especially love that last one. Thank you. It's kind of very reflective, isn't it, about stages we go through in life, I think. Thank you. Now we're going to have Mohammed, who's going to magically morph into Steve Juno.
Yes, hello. This is by Steve Juno, called War. War rages and causes death and destruction. Hundreds of people are killed innocently. Young little children, babies, lives taken away so horrendously. It seems like war is the epitaph of mankind, as peace treaties have no apparent significance at all. All around the world, there is war and unrest. Yes, it seems like we are definitely heading for Armageddon. Government leaders, the UN, they all gathered together to come up with some plausible solution. But as one war ends, another starts up. The race is a race of hardened hearts and mind that shows no relentlessness of heart. I will sit down and say a prayer for all those people persecuted and destroyed by detrimental leaders and predators whose only aim is to cause disarray. And as I pray, I will ask the Father to help those in vulnerable positions played upon to look like a lamb to the slaughter. All I can say, heaven forbid. I'll read another in the second half by Steve Juno. Right now, my own stuff. Beatles music. You never give me your money. You only give me your funny paper. And in the middle of negotiations, you break down. I never give you my number. I only give you my situation. And in the middle of investigation, I break down. Out of college, money spent, see no future, pay no rent. All the money's gone, nowhere to go. Any jobber got the sack, a Monday morning turning back. Yellow lorry slow, nowhere to go. But oh, that magic feeling, nowhere to go. Oh, that magic feeling, nowhere to go, nowhere to go. Ah, la 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 la. Do 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 do. La 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 la. Do 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 do. Thank you. Okay, this one is Ba Ba Ba. I wrote in Buxton in my hotel room. A few days back, we went to Derbyshire Peak District. Ba Ba Ba. Don't you feel alone in the peaklands? The clearings and fields, man-made, have helped a host of farmers. Here's a stony path here. Here there are stone walls separating farm from farm. A sprinkle of rain may fall from the tops of hills, peak clouds. Sun may push apart cloud masses to declare victory. Do you need company as you follow the living stream of fast flow current speech and standalone bearing? Ba, ba, ba. The sheep sit and stare. You begin to become self-sufficient poet in nature. Thank you. I finish with humor. Boris, so this is Boris updates. Boris updates. I update
Yes,
on
please.
Boris. Mhm.
Yes, please.
Yeah. I am glad that all my ministers have taken the knee and booed down the Labour pretenders who are back on the chain gang. I myself have cut aid by 4 billion, thereby reducing my net weight by 10% and gaining gross public confidence. Following the invasion of Timur Lang, I have no idea what's going on, why they dither while we deliver. Fish and chips down by 10%. Clap, clap, white power, honey, thang. I don't know what that is. Thank you, Madam Lindsay. Thank you very much. So,
It seems to have made George disappear, whatever you did.
he's gone off somewhere, he's checking something or the other, I don't know. Come on, George, we need you. George.
No, he's gone.
Gone to look for Boris.
Yes. Yeah.
Hey, George, come back. He's not over there, he's not in your garden. Come on.
He's done a Brexit exit.
Do you want to read next, John? Oh, here he is.
Are you taking over, Peter?
Help me if you can, I'm feeling down.
George is back.
What happened?
I nearly need some help to get around. Won't you please, please,
Please help me, help me, help George.
Anyway, yes, I don't know what happened there. I'm sorry, I must have touched something inappropriately. But thank you, Mohammed. You always bring a smile to my face.
Welcome.
Unlike Boris, who brings a frown of alarm, usually. Good evening, Jack. Nice to see you. Are you good to go? When you unmute. Can't hear you yet. That's it.
That's it. Good. I've switched myself on. Okay.
Okay, loud and clear. We got you now. Thank you.
Can I go?
Yes, please. You're on.
Right. Thank you. As every one of you knows, the poetry comes about from things that you'd thought you'd forgotten, a phrase or a jingle or something or another, and then you think, you leave it for decades, and then it comes back in your mind again, and you think, where the hell does that come from? But thank God for the internet, you can trace most things. I mean, I was able to trace this thing in the sense that I remember vividly where I first saw it. It was on an ad for Whitbread's beer in the Underground when I was a newly arrived student in London and was just finding my way around the big city. And this Whitbread's ad had the phrase, there is no substitute for ale. And I thought, so now, many decades on, I suddenly decided, where the hell is this? Were they just very clever? Because it certainly stayed with you. This jingle, and which is what advertising jingles are supposed to do. And but no, most interesting. God bless the internet, because I found out where it came from, and I will read you what I discovered. It's fairly long, but it's equally astonishing and entertaining, I hope you'll find. it says, a nationwide advertising campaign in the 1950s invited members of the public to submit their own verse on this subject. The poem had to end with the phrase, "There is no substitute for wool." The competition attracted thousands of entries, and many were later illustrated and displayed above the escalators of the London Underground. Now, then here goes. There is no substitute for wool by the public. These are the winning entries. When Casanova went to town, he always took his dressing gown, his bed socks and his knitted gloves, which mystified his lady loves. One gentle temptress asked him why. Quoth he with an experienced sigh, "Madam, I used to catch all kinds of chills on those Venetian blinds, so learned this lesson in love's school. There is no substitute for wool." Fair Venus surfaced from the spray, and not much work was done that day. The elders came, they turned bright pink, they coughed, they said, "We really think some well-placed wool would do no harm. Indeed, it might enhance your charm. Besides, you'll find the nights are cool. There is no substitute for wool." King Arthur's knights sat sullen-eyed. "What ails you all?" the monarch cried. Quoth one, "'Tis this round table, sire. The lads out here can't feel the fire." Quoth Genevieve, "Poor faithful knights, I'll knit you all a pair of tights." Which goes to prove the golden rule. There is no substitute for wool. Henry V at Agincourt outnumbered 10-1, we're told. Licked the French with English bowmen, woolen clad like country yeomen. The Frenchmen charging through the bogs were hampered by their iron togs and perished, proving once again that risen nay repace le lane. Judge Jeffreys felt extremely hot. Beneath his ermine, "Hang the lot," he cried, although his inclination had been to place them on probation. If only he had known the balm of wool for comfort and for calm, then mercy might have been the rule. There is no substitute for wool. "Regard you, come, scum," cried Captain Bligh. "3 months adrift, the shore is nigh." He seized his log. "We owe salvation to pluck and faultless navigation, to discipline and lack of gin, and wearing wool against the skin. The last, a most essential rule. There is no substitute for wool." Lady Godiva, so they said, had longer hair than Danny Kaye. It fell about her person fair, concealing dainty underwear. A modest safeguard justified throughout her cold but classic ride. For briefer garments, when it's cool, there is no substitute for wool. Pythagoras, by stretching string, extended maths like anything. One day he tried some woolen strands and stretched them gently in his hands. "What perfect elasticity! It's just the very thing," said he, "to hold the shape of coat and wraps. I think I'm on to something, chaps. Let's teach this theorem at school. There is no substitute for wool." Fair Helen was the Trojans' pin-up. Her beauty kept the nation's chin up. They say she was the only Spartan whose nose in winter wasn't tartan. From smuffled fleece she spun her wraps, which kept her warm and pleased the chaps. She knew the golden rule. There is no substitute for wool. You canny Highland crofters keep a flock of crease-resistant sheep. They weave their woolen shirts and slacks and flog 'em to the Sassenachs. Wool keeps its shape. It's bound to please ye nae sheep wi' baggy knees. At birth, bairn learn the golden rule. There's nae substitute for wool. The problem in a satellite is where to put the cat at night. For if you want your mind at ease, how can you let poor Pussy freeze? The answer reads on your computer. A woolly overcoat will suit her. From sheep to bleep, all know the rule. There's no substitute for wool. Anne Boleyn, the Queen, was sacked. She had bought her bags already packed and neatly marked in letters large, the Bloody Tower by royal barge. Her friends admired her savoir-faire until they missed their underwear. For Anne Boleyn was no one's fool. There is no substitute for wool. An arrow pinned the sheriff's wig. Against the wall he danced a jig. What gives this Robin Hood his nerve, his vim, his valour, and his verve? We know not, sir, they cried, unless it be his wool battle dress. In winter warm, in summer cool, there is no substitute for wool. Lord Nelson was an admiral bold, who beat the storms, the French, the cold. Because of fleecy wool he clad, each jolly pigtailed sailor lad. And if one tar so much as coughed, he hath his signal run aloft. Remember, men, the navvy's rule, there is no substitute for wool. Arriving for her pas de deux, this ballerina caused a stir, for underneath the froth of white, a pair of stockings came in sight. When challenged to explain her act, she said, it's an undoubted fact that balletites are too cool. There is no substitute for wool. The batmen blanched and shook with fright when Wyatt Earp rode into sight. What was the secret of his power? What made the outlaws hide and cower? His inner glow that tamed the West was due to woolly shirt and vest, so comforting where gunmen rule. There is no substitute for wool. What? Fly the channel? Ho, ho, ho! The skeptics jeered at Blériot. You'll freeze, mon ami, in that thing. You've nothing there but wire and string. But icing caused him no distress. He flew in wool. How did you guess? The rule for all who go by plane is ren ripla lelaine. Let Captain Waterhouse be praised. Let monuments to him be raised. You never heard of him before? He swam the Australian shore. Of all the immigrants the first, his act was bold and unrehearsed. He took no funds, he did not pack, but bore a sheep upon his back. Said he, tomorrow mighty flocks of sheep will keep the world in socks. The generations yet to be will walk in comfort thanks to me. So do not say I look a fool. There is no substitute for wool. The early ape men, Pliocene, were men of squat and crouching mien. And yet, what fascinating brutes they might have looked in woolen suits. For wool can flatter, wool can mold, it dignifies with every fold. The truth all sailors learn at school, there is no substitute for wool. Said Jupiter, "This peak is cold. More nectar, please. I'm growing old." What very foolish gods are we to shiver here eternally in fleecy clouds, while men below wears fleecy wool. Come, let's go. The gods were wise to learn the rule. There is no substitute for wool. King Midas turned his goods to gold by touching them, or so we're told. The shimmer of his royal shirt bedazzled, but the garment hurt. The royal socks were just as rigid and quite as abominably frigid. The king forgot the golden rule. There is no substitute for wool. Macbeth survived the witch's pot.
Jack, I'm going to have to interrupt you. I'm afraid it's very rude of me to do, but I think we're losing people's attention. You know, it is an issue. It's a very cleverly written poem, but it is an issue when they're very long. So, are we near the end, please?
No, but
No?
we have a second. Eh?
Oh yeah, I mean that's what I mean. You can. Are we near the end of part one?
Well, if you want this to be I can pick up from there. We're more than halfway through, I can tell you.
Okay, well, if you could pick up from there in part two, because I'd like to hear new voices, because we've lost one poet already, and I'm a bit worried about very long poems. We might lose interest, you know. I don't want to be offensive, but it's very interesting, but it's very long, isn't it?
Well, I'm sorry. It's just, no, I'm not a little bit sorry. In any case, let me tell you.
No, you needn't be sorry. You didn't write it. Whoever wrote it may be sorry. But I need to move on to Lorraine, please, because I've been ignoring Lorraine.
But
I don't want to upset your feelings. I know where we've got up to.
You want me next?
Yes, please,
All
Lorraine.
right. Well, I've only got a couple of thousand miles to go. Actually, I wrote this a while ago in 2016, and we've just had Bastille Day. So I quite like reading this. It reminds me almost always of my parents and exactly what used to happen in the mid-40s to the early 50s. And it's not as long as his, it's just a few thousand miles. Anyhow, it's called Bastille Day Bloodbath. War barely over. Crane hauled at Dover. Dad drives like possessed. Mum keeps screaming, distressed. Locked inside a car set for the Riviera. Oh, how I wish we lived somewhere nearer. My brother and I do not see eye to eye. We are heartily sick of 3 days of I Spy. I like travel scrabble. He wrecks it to rabble. In a horseless carriage bound for the Riviera. Why can we not live in some place nearer? At Reims we relent and play battleships, pretending to laugh at Dad's corny quips. There are no safety belts, tablets or CDs, so we try navigating sans expertise. Misread the route and hear our pa hiss. Fools, we've bypassed Colombier-les-Deux Églises. Walled up in a car, racing to the Riviera. Why hasn't my dad bought a house that is nearer? Hairpin bends, Mum's eyes shut tight. Thinks planes flies at the same height. Hold our breath as each coach stages a graceless near miss. See its back wheels rolled over, fouling precipice. We're all hanging on, praying for dear life, while sadist dad plays no heed to his wife. One more lap and he's over Les Alpes Maritimes. Behold, paradise found, a spectacular dream. Oh, what a punishing extensive tour, as Chislehurst smiles from the Côte d'Azur. Calm sapphire sea and cloudless sky, cool mistral winds keep vineyards dry. Green pine-clad mountains undulating, no mirage this, intoxicating. At Rue d'Antibes and La Croisette, no warning factions ever met. 'Twas Vichy France, the Boshy prize chic. All was preserved, pantile and brick. Who could foretell portent of hell? For Nice's Promenade des Anglais, a pavement of blood on Bastille Day, 70 years past the Second World War. Mass murderer violating the shore, though not even 1 kilometre nearer, sorrowful, I'll return to the French Riviera. So that's one anyhow. I've got two smaller ones that I've written recently, but I can do that in the second half, so I won't drag you any further yet.
Okay, Lorraine, well, that was a delightful trip through France. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Very well done, thank you. John, can we go to Coventry, please?
Yes. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, okay, right. Well, as people are traveling around the continent, and somebody earlier mentioned the Spanish for oranges, this little place is called, in Spain, is called Guadalest. And it's like a little fortress village on the top of a hill, a few miles inland from Benidorm. And there's a river that flows down the valley from Guadalest all the way down to the Mediterranean. And I wrote a little poem called Guadalest. I think in Spanish, Guadalest means the eagle's nest. And over the years, it had been fought over by various factions because it dominates the valley. And this is called Guadalest. To the sea, there flows a river falling gently from the west. By the river, winding upward, climbs the road to Guadalest. Roads are things that go both ways. Simply sit there in the sun, stay out in the roughest weather, let themselves be trampled on. Like a pilgrim, you may journey many miles through the dust. Like a tourist, you may hurry, go whatever pace you must, on the road that lies before you, on the road that cuts across the orange and the lemon groves that lead to Guadalest. Trees are things that face all ways, growing slowly in the sun, stay out in the warmest weather, let themselves be carved upon. May the sun blaze down upon you as in centuries before it shone on those who marched this way, the Christian and the Moor, who conquered, lost, and fought anew to gain the eagle's nest and stand in triumph on the walls of Castel Guadalest. Walls are things that face both ways, keeping out and locking in, keeping us divided, summer, autumn, winter, spring. Further up the valley, your path will rise and twist. Look, above the stream is thrown a bridge that must be crossed, a curve of stone carved through the air, an archway friends decided to build and reunite a land the river had divided. Muchas gracias.
Very well crafted, John. It's a lovely poem. Congratulations. I like it. Have you got another one for us?
I've got, oh, right, just a minute. Yeah, this is
Dulwich Group.
Poster from the poetry we used to have at the Crown and Greyhound pub in the 50s. When it cost 2 and 6 to go in, or 5 shillings if you were not an old age pensioner or a student. And we used to get all the top poets in the country sort of coming to it to do their little bit, and then the people, we could read out our own stuff as well. And these are 2 little poems to 2 of the people who were I can remember at giving performances at the Crown and Greyhound in the 60s, I think it was. And the first one is a tribute to a chat. So many people turned up that I think they were still almost, the queue went almost out into the front, beyond the front door into the village for this bloke. To one who did, to one who could, who did, who can, we thank you, Sir John Betjeman. You never feared to show us how a trade's a trade, a slough, a slough. Though now your slough has slouched on, and slough today is not so wrong, for men dream towns and draw their dreams, and architects sketch out their schemes, and men lay down the altered stone and from the earth carve out a home. But Slough today is not a tomb. Your unbombed Slough is now in bloom, and Slough is not as dark as night, for Slough today is coloured bright like chocolate Mars and Milky Bars and coloured paints of ICI. You saw, you wrote, you let us see an England fit for you and me. You taught us how you understood. You marked the false, you praised the good, you aimed your dart at the absurd and raised to art the written word. To one who did, who could, who can, we thank you, Sir John Betjeman. And the other chap was one of the organisers of the Crown and Greyhound poetry, and a chap called, the poet Sydney Carter. And his obituary appeared in the newspapers. But actually, Sydney Carter isn't dead. I don't care what the paper said. Betjeman may well have passed, Bunting may have writ his last, and a host of poets flown, signed off into the unknown. But there's one alive and kicking. Mr. Carter's ticker's ticking. Though he's 70 this year, Sydney Carter is still here. And of all the lot, it's he shall be read eternally. He the Lord, and he the dance. He who spells the endless trance. He who sounded young and bright on the telephone tonight. Sydney Carter, come again, warm us with your brilliant flame. And when my little son was 4 years old, we popped round to Sydney Carter's house and to have a cup of tea. And I got Sydney to play the tune of the Lord of the Dance on the piano to my little 4-year-old boy. There you go.
Thank you for that, John. I know the Crown and Greyhound very well. It's a lovely big pub and it's a lovely setting. So it brought back a few memories for me as well. Thank you. Now we're going to go to Peter. Good evening,
Pleasure.
Peter.
Hello.
Okay.
Right. As it's second part of April, July, I'm going to read a very old poem set in late July in Inari in Finland. And behind me is a picture of Lake Inari in July. It says Northern Finland above the Arctic Circle. Inari, Finland. Late July cloudberries ripen. You become elusive, disappearing into the wilderness at any time without a word. Your knowledge of the best places to pick the precious berries kept secret. Cloudberries are sweet. Cloudberries are the midnight sun made flesh. You fill a bucket. Hope no one stumbles on this patch before the rest have ripened. You will check them in a day or two, drive the wrong way from the village, cut cross country. One morning, deep in a swamp, you were nose to nose with a bear, like you intent on this perfection of the year. And nothing. South of here is Africa, our guide in Inari said. His life the reindeer seasons, the midnight sun, the weight of winter. The world below the Arctic, sketchy as a medieval map, out of which monstrous travellers appear, then vanish back. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Let's hope that Africa isn't coming to the Inari. That's the only problem. And I'm going to start off with we were in our little Wallington poet group. someone suggested doing trimerics. Now, trimerics are not like a grey kind of powdery thing that posh people put in their lattes. It's 4 lines and 3 lines and 3 lines and 3 lines. So you take the lines of the first verse and apply them to starting off the second, third, and fourth verses. Probably doesn't make much sense, but I'll read them. So, global warning. When nature shakes her mighty fist, the gods of earth must be mighty pissed. That's when the fires and floods arise, to say our eyes are off the prize. The gods of the earth must be mighty pissed. We rape the land, set the forest ablaze, yet fail to see through our greedy haze. That's when the fires and floods arise. The rivers rise and many die, yet our leaders are not asking why. To say our eyes are off the prize is really no great brainer. If nature's pissed, well, really, who can blame her? So that's the first trimeric. And the second trimeric is called I Don't Think It's All Over. Now, this is going to be a big yawn from every non-football fan. I don't think it's all over. It's the game of games. Who will take the crown when time has been used and the scores are the same? One nation is up and one nation is down. Why should the ones who don't score take any blame? When time has been used and the scores are the same, a penalty shootout will need to pertain. And after such struggle, there should be no shame. One nation is up and the other is down, yet they deserve our respect. They've earned our renown, but are savaged because they are black or they're brown. Why should the ones who don't score take any blame? The cowards who hate but won't give their name don't merit a share in our pride at their fame. Boom, boom. There you go. So, slightly polemic, that one. We can all unmute now. Whee! So, facilities.
He's mute.
Yeah, you need to take the mute off, Jim.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's fine.
Right, okay. Immortality and back. They said my poems were lovely, and I believed them. For a while I was walking through the fragrant fields of their devising. It was heaven on earth, scarcely real. The gates of Parnassus opened wide to reveal the smiling faces of my much published fellow poets, immortals of so many small magazines. Then things changed. My poems, they said, were not so lovely anymore. They had noted a certain falling off in quality, a loss of pristine purity, and a loss of some unknowable but much sought after something they once mistakenly thought I'd had. And so, cast out from the Eden of their former praise, I could see only the barrenness of my declining years. No longer a fellow immortal, but a man tormented by the spectre of an unmarked grave. But then, step by step, my humiliation gave way to a heady sense of freedom. No longer was I the prisoner of other poets' praise, no longer depleted by the obsession for poetic fame. I became, thank God, a mere mortal once again, shorn of delusions, a poor forked animal standing half naked in a windswept heath, alone but proud, anointed by the freezing rain.
Ooh. Criticism cuts, doesn't it, Jim? Criticism cuts to the heart.
It does indeed.
Yeah. Ready for another one?
No, that's it actually.
Is it? Right, yeah. Okay, it's strange how, you know, sometimes we just would like people to say nothing rather than hurt us, but human nature being what it is. Yeah. We're going to move on to Martin. Martin is jumping up and doing something. And he's muted.
I'm unmuted.
Very
Right,
good.
I'm going to read one of Richard Wilbur's, which I have read before, but I hope you will enjoy it. This one is called Complaint, and there's an epigraph at the top. It says, in reality, each love is that of the divine image, and each is pure. From somebody called Ficino, or I don't know who it was. Anyway, this is the poem. Why is it that whenever I talk with the Duchess, my belly growls and my nose waters? Why must it be my hand that tumbles her wineglass over into the Cellini salt dish? Stiff as a gaffer, fidgety as a child, after 20 years of struggling to be a courtier, I remain incapable of the least politeness, wit, song, or learning. And I wonder sometimes, what is it in me that hates me? Is it that rolling captain who should burst like surf into her presence, dumping down his pillage of the seas, and in a wink dissolve her castled pride? She scorns no common magic, and could be pleased to be manhandled like a kitchen girl, so it was sweet and reckless. Or is it that idolatrous fool that's in me, who, lest she alter, should enchant the hour with gentle sparrows and an aimless lute, enthralling her with tales of a king's daughter bound in mountain sleep, whose prince and wakener, detained by trials in deserts, deeps, and grottos of the world, approaches her forever? Or am I spited by the priest I might be, there in the stone grove of her oratory? No ship sails out so free as she at prayer, with head bowed and shrouded, confessing her, and my delight in her to the great ways and haven of her beauty. Would I not serve her better? Would not my hand be steady with the wine? Jackass, again you turn and turn this prism, whose every light is of the purest water. How should I fathom her whose white hands fold the rainbow like a fan? O maiden muse and maiden, O my love, whose every moment is the quick of time, I am your bumbling servant now and ever, in this and the other kingdom.
A very courtly Renaissance poem, thank you. Have you got another one, Martin?
I've got this is one of mine.
Very good.
This is something I wrote after a trip to my sister's house in America, a place near Bellingham in Washington State, or Chuckanut Point. So this is called Westminster Chimes, Chuckanut Point, July 2018. Here at my sister's house, sea on three sides, on Washington's northwest coast, the water's glassy calm with gentle tides, those slopes down to the bay which boast 10 million trees, cedars, western red, and Douglas firs predominate, each species with distinctive shape and head, whereas in leafy Surrey undulate much gentler downs, clothed in a softer green. Up on the mantelshelf solemnly stands a clock of glass and wood, whose sheen is low-key. Those elaborate hands move over Roman numerals. Each hour this clock reminds us of those times, as children at home, each night our radio declaimed Westminster Chimes. So the clock had Westminster Chimes on it. It's quite nostalgic. And one...
Yes, please. Yeah.
No more?
Yes, please.
Is that enough?
No,
Okay.
please. More, please. More,
Okay.
encore.
This is a rondo. It's I think it's a panino to an earlier one. It's a rondo, The End of Solitude, to Sheila, my wife. Now safely paired, to great surprise, this aging male, a trifle wise, enjoys once more the married state. And though it seemed too long to wait, we both know where true comfort lies within our union. Lest it dies, what ancient counsellors advise will follow, giving truth its proper weight, now safely paired. Were we to tolerate small flies, which Satan sows along with lies, to poison balm and breeding hate, then love and bliss evaporate. Christ's golden rule much more applies, now safely paired. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. I don't want you to feel too big-headed about it, but I preferred your poem that followed Richard Wilbur, to the Richard Wilbur poem. So there you go. I thought it was a lovely poem. So there's an accolade for you. Your hero who's been overtaken by you, in my opinion.
No, not really.
So, Lorraine, are you ready to give us some of your lovely poems?
Yes, I did a little trimmerec the other day, so I'll read that first. It's called The Inventory. GPs aren't on tap anymore. Their shutters are battened and they've shut the door. They don't want to hear your story. They want something rare, pungent and gory. Their shutters are battened and they've shut the door. But if you've eaten some rattlesnake raw, the online nutritionist will zoom you of what's in store. They don't want to hear your story. It's not in the gripping, incurable category. And the medics have already overdosed on the vulnerable, old and hoary. They want something rare, pungent and gory. A blonde, messed up hair specimen called a Tory to add to the medical failure freaks inventory. That's what I think the doctors are doing. You know, they don't speak to me anyhow, it's all zooming.
No.
I've got one more that's not very long. It's not a trimmer, it's not a, trimmerec, it's one of mine. And it's called No Compromise. And it's based on the terrible diversity everybody is talking about. No, everybody wants to be the same and not the other. And this is called No Compromise. There's only one way to harmonise, no compromise. Away with the classrooms of jug ears, four eyes, shorties, fatties and bones. Planet Earth's creating reusable clones. Identical pigment, the same height and the same weight, all heads bald, hair banished, albeit curly or straight. The shared genes will implant the same thoughts in the brains. Every sibling just mind reads, no one complains. They've been programmed to agree to a new labour force. The duplicates must pick straws to be a workhorse. They know their roles will change over time, and exorcised elections make their lives feel sublime. An occasional maverick chromosome would rebel. It's trying to escape pell-mell from a synchronized hell. In the lab, the scientists note the minute freak, and its crime is just seeking to be unique. So that's what I think in the end. Everybody wants to be the same, so they could all be cloning everywhere. So.
Yeah, it's a bit like Hitler tried in the 1930s to produce a master race.
Yes, absolutely.
And it ended up with failure.
Yes, that's what all the labs will be trying to do.
Very nice, Lorraine. Thank you. Not nice, thought-provoking is what I meant. Alan, what have you got for us, please?
After Lorraine's trip to France, I had a trip to France. This is called Booze Cruise. We're going on a day trip to France. Look out, here come the Brits. We're not going anywhere fancy like Marseille, Saint-Tropez or Biarritz. It's just a little trip through the Channel for drinks and lunch in Calais. If I'm really honest, it's not that far away. But it's an opportunity to dust off my 40-year-old schoolboy French, to practice before we go to Gay Paris. Makes a lot of sense. Apparently, the Parisians only like to parlez-vous français, so it seems a good idea to buff it up today. We went into a bar to get ourselves a drink. I stood there working out what to say. I really had to think. In my Cockney franglais, I asked the bartender, "Deux Tubergs, s'il vous plaît." The bartender smiled politely. "Large or small," was his reply. "Grand merci beaucoup," I replied, looking firmly into his eyes. With my two beers standing on the bar, I pushed on. "Un grand vin blanc, s'il vous plaît." He repeated my order in English once again. He understands me. I'm feeling buoyant. I'm doing fine. Before me, he places my large white wine. I place my final order. "Un Coca-Cola, s'il vous plaît." "Voulez-vous de glacé?" is his reply. I stand there deflated as the wind is taken from my sails, trying to understand what he said. Tumbleweed drifts across my mind. He makes me sweat a little longer. "Would you like ice?" "Yes, please, s'il vous plaît," I reply excitedly. "That would be nice." We relocate to our table and sup on our wine and beers. now comfortably parley-booing on glade. This was music to my ears. Thank you.
Any more, Alan?
Yes, I have another one. This is about climbing and my unfortunate incident. And it's just called climbing. I've never climbed a mountain. I don't know if I could, because I struggled on some sandstone rocks in the middle of a wood. I clambered and I reached out and I tried to find handholds, but my partner was a waste of space. He cried, "I'm getting cold." I said, "Pay attention, make sure you take up the slack. If I fall and you don't hold me, I may end up breaking my back." He instilled me with no confidence as I stretched and thrust to grip, to reach it and hold the sandy rock. Then suddenly I slipped. My whole life flashed before me as I frantically thrashed and grabbed around. Then, petrified by my pending doom, I saw I was only 18 inches from the ground. The instructor laughed dispiritingly. He was a crusty old lag. He then proceeded to climb the whole 8 feet with one hand while smoking a fag. This did nothing for my confidence, absolutely nothing at all. So with my legs like sticks of jelly, I walked off and told him, "You can keep your stupid wall." It was, I went away with my son on a father and son camp with scouts, with the Cubs, and that was my experience.
Excuse my dog. My dog's dropping his bone on the wooden floor all the time. That's the banging you can hear.
Right.
Just trying to create some attention to himself. Go away, you. Come on, lie down.
George,
Yes.
can I make an apology? What happened was my computer was rebooted.
Yeah.
And so I didn't get gallery view. I got reader view, which showed four people in a blank space. None of them was me, and I couldn't see everybody else. And I thought, what is this? Some kind of, I think some mistake had been made, or it's some new policy. And I think, what is this? That's why I was a bit sort of grumpy and pissed off and all that sort of thing. Yeah, sorry.
I didn't pick that up at all, Jim. That's a revelation to me. But thank you for the explanation.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, yeah. Yeah.
Obviously, Jim was grumpy and pissed off when he's reading.
I didn't see anybody's faces, you see.
Yeah, getting back to grumpy and pissed off, Alan's first poem reminded me the first time I went to Calais, and I thought, I was only 19. I thought, I'll try out my French, and this waiter said, "Do not try to speak French to me when you so clearly cannot." I thought, oh, sod you. So I didn't try after that. Anyway, there you go. Mohammed, are you going to do Steve as well?
Yeah, I'll do
Okay.
a Steve poem, which is Heroes. Heroes were born in the yesterday, great, valiant, and upright men. A true hero is one that fights to protect people and is exalted highly. When you have come through unscathed, you are a man of valor and great technicality. In these trying times we are living in, we need true heroes to challenge, compete, and bring this world back to peace. There needs to be a cooperation of men, getting together to tackle life's awkward battles. Enforce goodwill and not let evil shine its ugly face. For we are all God's children, and everyone needs a taste of good life and good fortune. I've got two small poems and a little longer one I wrote in the Peak District. So this one follows from a little diary entry. The hills and valleys, slopes and paths, the peaks in the district I stand before. I must create a language to link with all of the clothed in green. In July, our eyes allow beauty that orbits our world to girdle plain wonder. And then the next one is based on Satan's bumhole, which is the cave in Castleton, Satan's bumhole. Satan's asshole or Satan's bumhole. The devil's posterior with the funny hollow hole. I try to shrug off every evilly provoke. There's no stench, others discern. I wind and go high, low, to reach the tors and troughs. Right. A pair of hands tries to get at me. I weave in and out of traps and torrents. The devil is to be interred at Dung Heap. Dung Heap, yes. Right. This one is stone houses. I just kept saying all these stone houses, realized that they've done a lot of work with stones. Stone houses, firm as rocks. No big erosion. Far from Southend and Morecambe, Blackpool Light. With hanging baskets of tiny colorful flowers and a silence saying much about peace prevailing. Beside Buxton and Castleton ways, a free way to find fortification in the mind. Snow covers when we're absent in winter, when we don't see the peaks, hills that roll and play with a silent music ongoing. Stone for houses, to make walls tough and durable. Walkers find grass, gravel, and green shrubs. Plants, trees. Endurance keeps going poetic, like stone houses standing. And finishing with a bit of humor by Stuart Henderson, Tiger. Through the grass, the tiger stalks, another of his evening walks. You never hear his silent stroll as he pads near the waterhole. It's not a place to stand and mope. I'm glad I'm not an antelope. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mohammed.
You're welcome.
Great stuff as usual. Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Okay.
I really enjoyed.
Jack, I'm going to grovel to you. I'm very sorry if I was nasty to you in part one, but have you some stuff for us, please? Jack, you're muted. You're muted. You're better unmuted.
Oh,
Good.
yep,
Yeah,
there we
that's
are.
it.
How's that?
That's good.
Yes, okay, I hear you loud and clear. No, what the trouble with what I was trying to do was to read 50 poems in one reading. Which of course it really can't be done. I see it is only a fool like me would have attempted it, but I didn't even get through a third of them. And you really need, I can do only to some degree I can do this. It needs a different voice because it's a different author from each of the poems. And they come up from it. What is fascinating to me and astonishing, how many different approaches you could take to arrive at the line, there is no substitute for wool. And the thing that grabbed my attention as a very young man, I must have been 19 or 20, this was the early 50s, 1950s, grabbed my attention of that Whitbread ad was the rhyme that says the problem in a satellite is where to put the cat at night, which I thought it clipped into my musical ear and stayed there forever without particularly thinking. I thought how clever of the Whitbread publicity people to have thought that up. But it turns out to be one of the poems that was sent into this advertising campaign in the 1950s for the wool industry. And it's all the more interesting. You can get it online. It's simply called "There Is No Substitute for Wool" by the public. And if you go there, you'll find all 50 of them. And they are a joy to read. Of course, as you would expect, it's uneven. Some of them stick more easily in your mind than others. Okay. Oh, now,
Have you got a poem for us, Jack?
the only one I would do is to read the thing that drew my attention to this whole damn thing in the first place, from the Whitbread beer advertisement. The problem in a satellite is where to put the cat at night. That's stayed with me forever. And I didn't know that it came from this. There is no substitute for wool by the public, which is how I found it on, and how you could find it if you want it. And you've got 50, you need lots of copying paper. I discovered I filled the machine before I told it to copy. And shall I just read that one verse?
Yeah, one verse will be okay, Jack. We don't mind one verse. We're not averse to one verse.
Oh, by the way, I happened to be talking with Roy on another matter at the place we might meet.
Ruskin House, yeah.
Ruskin House. He seems to think it will probably be, it ought to be possible. They are hoping and expecting it to be possible for August, but you know, we'll see what he says now when we get nearer the time. So, but it would be nice to be together again, because you communicate much more easily.
You do. That's very true.
Don't you think so? I mean, it's very nice having this video link, but it's another. None of us is professional.
Anyway, Jack, we mustn't nurse the verse. Can we hear the verse? You're going to release it?
Here it goes.
Right.
The problem in a satellite is where to put the cat at night. For if you want your mind at ease, how can you let poor Pussy freeze? The answer reads on your computer. A woolly overcoat will suit her. From sheep to bleep, all know the rule. There is no substitute for wool. They're all like that, so you've got 50 to enjoy if you go on the website to get the others. Hey, oh, you've gone? No, we can't hear you, George. You're switched
Thank you,
off.
Jack. Thank you, Jack. Yeah, that kind of reminds me back in the 60s. I remember one of these sort of metal plaques that it said, a Schwepicure is a kind of epicure who expects the presence of Schweppervescence. And it was for Schweppes, obviously. But I wonder how many brains filled that one up. Yes.
Nice.
Anyway.
Nice.
So we need to move on then. So we've got left is Peter, I think, and moi.
But I'm going to read another Scandinavian poem. This is the National Gallery, Oslo, and it's before people had cameras that could take selfies. Japanese tourists have formed a queue that stretches across the gallery. The guide takes their cameras, a pose, a flash, Munch's screen flattened behind their right shoulder. Getting to the National Gallery half an hour before closing, I had hurried through rooms, only glancing at pictures to get to this painting. I also take in culture by its icons, the scream now ticked off my list, a postcard leaning against my computer. And our journey started. Our journey started with an atlas and a compass direction. Entering the country, we purchased a map of major roads. At each junction, each change of direction, we moved to larger scale maps, each map larger, more detailed than the last. Now our map of 1-to-1 lies on the land. We walk on it, on symbols, signs, pictograms. This is our destination, but not this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Peter. That was lovely. Thank you. Really good stuff. As we started off with bagpipes, when the piping stopped by Joe Sanders, I'm going to finish on bagpipes. This is called Bagpipe Music, and it was written by Louis MacNeice, who's born in Belfast. And he wrote this in 1938. And what I love about this poem is the audacity of it. You know, there's lots, you know, the Spanish Civil War had gone on, the Italians had, you know, kind of invaded Ethiopia. There was the Jews are beginning to be persecuted in Germany. And he writes this, bagpipe music. It's no go the merry-go-round. It's no go the rickshaw. All we want is a limousine and a ticket to the peep show. Their knickers are made of crêpe de chine. Their shoes are made of python. Their halls are lined with tiger rugs and their walls with heads of bison. John MacDonald found a corpse, put it under the sofa, waited till it came to life and hit it with a poker. Sold its eyes for souvenirs, sold its blood for whiskey, kept its bones for dumbbells to use when he was 50. It's no go the yogi man, it's no go Blavatsky. All we want is a bank balance and a bit of skirt in a taxi. Annie MacDougall went to milk, caught her foot in the heather, woke to hear a dance record playing of old Vienna. It's no go your maidenheads, it's no go your culture. All we want is a Dunlop tire and the devil mend the puncher. The Laird o' Phelps spent Hogmanay declaring he was sober, counted his feet to prove the fact and found he had 1 foot over. Mrs. Carmichael had her fifth, looked at the job with repulsion, said to the midwife, take it away. I'm through with overproduction. It's no go the gossip column. It's no go the Kaylee. All we want is a mother's help and a sugar stick for the baby. Willie Murray cut his thumb, couldn't count the damage, took the hide of an Ayrshire cow and used it for a bandage. His brother caught 300 cram when the seas were lavish, threw the bleeders back in the sea and went upon the parish. It's no go the herring board, it's no go the Bible. All we want is a packet of fags when our hands are idle. It's no go the picture palace, it's no go the stadium, it's no go the country cot with a pot of pink geraniums. It's no go the government grants, it's no go the elections. Sit on your arse for 50 years and hang on to your pension. It's no go my honey love, it's no go my poppet. Work your hands from day to day, the winds will blow the profit. The glass is fallen hour by hour, the glass will fall forever. But if you break your bloody glass, you won't hold up the weather. So there you go. Strange poem, but lovely. There's something about it I like. I don't know
Great
what
poem.
it is.
I thought it was a great poem.
Yeah, I think it's a great poem. I probably didn't read it that well, but I'm a bit knackered and I haven't got my glasses on. That's the problem. I didn't want to be rude and go in the other room and find my glasses. So I've been working at a disability tonight, folks. Sorry about that.
Are you going to read one of yours, George, to end up?
I will do it. Yeah, it's not, you know, my stuff isn't long. Did I do Alone in the Moonlight? Yeah, I did that one. Did I do, here we, Global Warming, I did that. Oh, A New Perspective. This again is another turmeric. A New Perspective. To climb high is the height of ambition. When you are 8 among swaying branches, the world looks smaller and you are bigger when the tree buds open to the sky. When you are 8 among swaying branches, you learn of risk and mortality when you are on unsteady surfaces. The world looks smaller and you are bigger, and somehow the breeze is fresher when you leave the paths of earthbound man. Where the tree buds open to the sky, fresh greenness looks at golden sun, and life seems to smile out of the shade. So there we are. That's kind of based on how I felt about climbing trees when I was a little boy. You know, you used to feel like you were a giant up there, and you used to feel, you know, because it was so unsticky, you thought, I might fall and die. And then you think, well, you know, but I'm kind of God and, you know, kind of above all that kind of thing. That's how children think, I think. Anyway, do you want another one, or no? That'll do. Probably.
Yeah, go on, George. Give us one more.
One more if I can find it. Did I do Alone in the Moonlight? No. on Wednesday night, one of our little Wallington numbers told us that it was Go Naked Day. And she said, you've only got 15 minutes to strip off and go out in the garden in the moonlight. And I thought, well, who would do that? Who on earth would do that? And then I thought, well, I wrote this poem and it's called Alone in the Moonlight. Tonight was the night of the naked moon dance, but none of the coven turned up. I'd arrived with a hemlock ready to prance, carried cups of nightshade for them to sup. Had they all resiled from casting off the black cloak to shine like ebony tusks in tufts of night grass? Had they all ceased to worship our master the goat? Was our season of witching now a thing of the past? I'm not the best witch chef, I must admit. Maybe he burnt the hemlock pie the previous night. Or was it my yew and castor oil leaf rarebit? I just can't work out why our numbers are light. Right, there you go. Never let a witch cook for you. That's the moral of the story. And never go naked in the moonlight. Unless you want to get arrested.
Yeah.